Hello, everybody. My name's Tiffany. I'm the Tipsy Artist. Cheers. And we are going live to teach you how to go jump in a lake. Well, we're going to paint it. All right. So we have our beautiful traceable all ready to go down here. And let me show you the model. Now, I just killed my model right before I started. And it just stabbed a big hole in it. But oh well, I'm painting a new one today, so you can see how I ripped. Yeah, it happens sometimes. But there it is. This sweet little painting's been with me for about 6 years, and I just now ripped it today. But you can take, by the way, a little helpful hint on ripping a painting, which is what I did here. You can take, well, you can take duct tape and put it in the back, and it'll keep it in place. So that's good. All right, so we have our traceable all done here, and line art is done. So this is going to be a beautiful thing. This is one of those beautiful paintings where we're going to do this beautiful wash over the top. And so it's very fast and therapeutic. And I love to use a really big brush for this. So here it is. So we have these available on our website. And then, of course, your kit, if you buy one, it comes with these 3 sweeties. We have Mama and Little Buddy and then Little Bit. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started by making this beautiful turquoise color. And I'm going to be using some primary cyan blue. So we'll have a nice little dollop of that there. And then also some Viridian. There it is. And then we're going to have a lot of white. So it's going to be some titanium white. And I'm looking for that bottle. Here's some. I have a lot already out of my plate nearby. So titanium white, we'll have that. And then I'll go ahead and grab a whole bunch of that. Probably need to get some new. You know what? Let's just do that. I have a big economy size. I go through a lot of paint, as you can just imagine. So let's do a whole bunch of that nearby. All right, so here's what we've got so far. A lot of white, a little bit of that blue, a little bit of that Viridian. Let's go ahead and start to push all of that together. So it makes this really beautiful turquoise color. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and just push this back and forth. Go edge to edge, back and forth here. And then you can add a little bit of water to this too. That will help it be a lot more fluid on the canvas. And do a little touch of that primary cyan blue. We're going to whisk that into the back. As long as we get that beautiful wet on wet paint mix, it blends really nicely. And we're just going to keep pulling this all the way through. So there's a couple of different ways to do this with our traceable. You can actually, what I recommend is just going ahead and doing all of your background color first. And I've done a little demo. I've got it over here to the side. I'll be pulling that here in a little bit. But it's actually easier to do all that, just to block it off and do all of the background first. And then you can let that set up and dry. And then you can go ahead and use the traceable just to go ahead and do the work right on top over the surface. So that is a beautiful thing. Makes it so much easier on you. All right, I'm getting kind of carried away as I talk. So this is all the blue, but guess what? We need to work in some yellow. So now I need to go ahead and rinse out this beautiful brush here. So check it out. We're going to spin it round and round and round. Firm pressure. And then that will help release that paint. This is kind of a good workout here. Yeah, it takes a little bit to get all that out of there. That was a lot of paint in that brush. All right, so I don't want to drip all over my canvas. I'm going to go ahead and dry that off over here. I suppose I should get a rag over here too. There we go. All right, so the color next will be some primary yellow. It's quite lovely. I'll go ahead and do a little dollop of that over here. It doesn't take that much. Yes. The question is, do you post to the UK? And we post all over the world. So we're just wherever Facebook. I know I actually have a lot of regulars in the UK that actually watch. So yes, ma'am, I think so. Yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, and all those people out there. All over the world. All right, so we're going to go ahead and push into some of this beautiful bright yellow, and then I'm going to work this into the mix. And you definitely want to get in there while that paint is still wet, because we're going to apply some firm pressure and we're going to get a nice soft blend right over the top. And again, remember not to lift off your brush until you're completely off the side of the canvas. And we're creating a nice soft fade between that really pretty light blue and that bright yellow. All right, now I need to go ahead and rinse out again, because we're going to keep pulling down that yellow, but we want to stop that turquoise from creating too much of a green hue in there. So we're going to go ahead and rinse out again, dry off the brush, and now come into another section of this really pretty bright yellow, and then bring this into, make sure I'm kind of tapping all my equipment here. I'm getting really carried away and excited with my Go Jump in a Lake here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and push this into the surface. All right, so this is looking really bright and vibrant. So the farther I get away from that soft transition and that turquoise, we're starting to see a really pretty bright, vibrant primary yellow that is just more in a pure state. So that's good. That's what we want. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and work into some beautiful primary magenta. So here we go. We've got some of that. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a little dollop over here to the side. And I've already got a little bit of some cadmium orange nearby too. Let me go ahead and scoot that up a little bit. So cadmium orange is also in there too. All right, let's go ahead and dry this off. All right, so soft fade now. Actually, let's grab a little bit of white too. That'll lighten up that magenta just a little bit. And then we're going to push that into that primary yellow. And you see how it's creating a nice soft fade between the two, so the primary yellow mixes into it, warms it up, and we get a nice soft transition. And I don't want to see any brush strokes in there, so I have firm pressure, and I just keep pushing down, and I take it all the way across. I'm going to add a little bit of water here too. Take this all the way across here. Let's grab a little bit more color. A little bit more water. Let me get right next to that line edge. Let me go ahead and take a nice thick line edge all the way across. All right, and then we're going to smooth that out. Let's grab a little bit of orange in there too. So a little bit more of that primary magenta and the orange, and then we're going to push that in. Get some nice, good coverage right over the top. And then we're going to grab a little bit more water. That'll just help make that a bit more fluid, and we're going to push that back and forth. Right across there. And what you'll notice is that, see how all the line work is bleeding through? So even if you choose to do your line work in advance, it will still bleed through and you'll still be able to see it. And it's quite lovely. And in that way, you won't lose all your hard work with your tracing. You can come back in later and go ahead and fill that in. All right, so next step, we're going to be working in all of our beautiful blue water. And we're going to rinse out here, and we're going to go back to another mixing plate. And I've got a lot of that titanium white nearby. I had a bunch of that from earlier, and then our color mix on this is going to be a lot of this primary cyan blue. So let's get a little bit more of that. And then also we're going to use some Viridian. So there's some Viridian. This is one of my most favorite colors. I love this. So I'll give you a visual on this here in just a second. All right, so that's looking very lovely. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start, let's see what I've got in my back. Yeah, it's a little bit darker up towards the top. And then it does get a little bit lighter as it pulls in towards the bottom. So I'm going to start dark here. And let's go ahead and, boy, this is a bigger brush than I'm used to. I've got my camera down lower. Y'all are getting a really up close and personal look at my brushes coming up towards the camera. It's like a action movie with paint brushes. All right, so we're going to take a nice thin line all the way across. I'm going to shift how I hold the brush a little bit too and hold it more like a pencil. And you see how that gives me a nice thin, there we go, nice thin line edge. So this is going to come towards the canvas. This will help you be more precise as you get right next to that line edge. This is where our water will start. All right, so now that we've got that line done, then we can kind of relax a little bit and then shift how we hold the brush, and we're going to start to get some nice coverage here first, and then we're going to go back to that horizontal stroke to take that all the way across there. All right, so now here we go again. We're going to continue on with just horizontal strokes all the way across. Smooth out those brush strokes, feather that out, and you can certainly add a little bit of water to this too to make it a little bit more fluid. Really helps it move on the canvas. And a lot more water. Now I'm going to add a little bit of that Viridian. And that's going to make some really beautiful water here. So now it's like we're in the Bahamas. Here we go. A little bit more of that aqua. Actually, I said go jump in a lake, so it's not the Bahamas. Sorry, there I go dreaming again. See, I want to go jump in an ocean, but that's where I'm at. Yeah. But we're going to go jump in a lake. So actually this water, well, quite honestly, with this deep blue, kind of reminds me of Michigan, Texas. If it were Oklahoma, I'd add some red at the base for all that red dirt that comes in. All right, real quick. I'm seeing a little bit of, it's kind of bugging me. I'm seeing a little bit of peekaboo here with the red. Add a little bit of water. All right. So continuing on, let's go ahead and keep those strokes going all the way across. And I'm going to add a little bit of white as I pull this down. It's going to pull a little bit light now. It's like we're getting some reflective light here in our water. I'm going to touch into a little bit of that Viridian, pull that across. So we'll see little streaks of that Viridian coming through in the water. And then now a little bit more white. We're going to lighten up a little bit more. Let's add a few little touches of the blue. A little bit of variety here. And then remember to keep your pressure really firm and go all the way across. And you won't lift off until you get to the other side. All right. So that is our base. That's our wonderful and beautiful foundation here. So I do need to let this one set up and dry. I had to do a little bit more prep work for this particular painting because going live with it just requires it to work in stages. So I'm going to put this off to the side, put this one here, let this one dry behind me. I've got my model over here now. All right, so what we've got now, this is how I recommend that you work at home. So we've worked ahead, and you see how I let this dry, and then theoretically, this is the best way for this to work. So now you can place your whole traceable right over the top. And then here's what's awesome. Actually, I'm going to clean up just a tad. I've got wet paint everywhere. So let's go ahead and, there, that's better. I'd hate to get paint on me. That was a joke. I am always covered in paint. Okay, so traceable paper, let's talk about, or transfer paper and then your traceable. So this comes in your kit, and then this is transfer paper. So you want the dull gray side facing up, and then you want the shiny black side facing down. And see, you can actually do this right over the top of the dried paint. It is a beautiful thing. So this is actually the easiest way to work. So I've got this in place. I just place it right in the center. Simple as using a pencil, or we also provide a colored pencil in your kit so that you can actually have contrast and see where you've been. And I recommend keeping the bottom part unattached so that you can constantly check your work and make sure that you're all good before you actually completely lift off. Because the only thing that can become challenging with traceable paper is if you don't, like, you miss something and then you try to go back and line it up, that gets tricky. So just keep it in place at the top, do all your, tracing, and then keep peeking. And then when you're all good, then you can lift off. And I am all good. So I'm going to go ahead and lift off. All right, so we're good here. And then look at this little beautiful guy. This is a permanent marker. Okay, or a lot of people call it a Sharpie. So this comes in your kit too. And then I love to do lettering with the permanent marker. And so do, well, all beginners so far that I've ever talked to in my entire life. They also absolutely love it. So this is a really thin, popular font that people love. But it can be quite the challenge to paint, but very easy to place on here with a permanent marker. So let's just do this. And then of course we have all this line art done for you. And if you want a different color, then of course there's always paint pens too. You can do that. And of course Sharpies now come in many different colors, so that's also an option. So again, we make it super easy. And then I'm going to go ahead and leave this little circle. That's that needs to stay a little bit light because we're going to come in with some, like a little bit of a soft glow around it, and then the wider paint here. And I don't want a harsh black line to have to contend with there. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that just the way it is. That's dark enough. But on my boat, I definitely want to come in with a darker line, reinforce all of this, because this definitely helps you. And then you can keep your boat, really simple. You don't have to do all these little, curly cues. But if you like the curly cues, well, then have fun with that because they're already there for you. So I'm going to go ahead and just place that reference in. And honestly, this is a fun look just on its own too. So if you wanted, I don't know, just to leave the negative space in here. I never really thought about this before, but kind of interesting. All right. So good job, everybody. This is where we're at. I can feel that y'all are doing an amazing job. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and paint some white into this little section in here. So it is definitely time to move to a smaller brush. So we're going to go ahead and work with our little buddy brush. That's what I call a little buddy. He is a 1/4 inch flat. So I've got some pure white over here to the side. So I'm going to go ahead and push into that. And this whole bottom section of the boat is white. So I'm going to go ahead and work that into those little shapes there. And I'll come back and tag that black line here in a little bit. Right now, I just want to work on getting some really good coverage into the base. So I'm going to hold it more like a pencil to get a nice thin line to go all the way across. And then all the way across at the base. All right, so now we're going to feather this out a little bit. Get a nice thick layer of white right over the top. And then we'll come at it from the other side here too. So the trick is, in order to get really good coverage here, you want to, again, try to lay that brush just as much as you can over to the flat side so that it's parallel to the canvas. So that gives you a nice gentle hand, and it helps feather out those brush strokes, and it helps a lot of that paint just rest right on the surface. All right, so that's beautiful. So we have that bottom section, and then we also have a little circle here. So I'm going to take our little buddy and place it right in the center, and then as I push out here, it's going to fan those bristles out to a half circle. And same thing here on this side, kind of fan out to a half circle. And then we'll go ahead and feather that out in the center and get good coverage over that surface area. Okay, so now we need a little bit of some turquoise to come in at the top. So we've got our primary cyan blue, our Viridian, and then our white. So let's go ahead and mix this up again. A little bit more white to this. This is going to be the top section of the boat. All right, so that's looking just about right. Now I'm going to use Little Buddy again, and we're just going to do like this little stripe here, basically this whole section. So that little top part will actually be black. Now the cool thing about turquoise is it does cover very well. So I'm going to go ahead and and hello everybody. There are more people out there. Hello, hello. Do a nice thin line edge. So holding it more like a pencil gets that really thin line edge of the brush right next to the edge. I'm going to go ahead and get that edge work done first, and then, all right, let me show you this too. So as I load up with paint, let's give it some firm pressure so that the brush doesn't get too fat with paint and our edge still stays pretty thin. So that will help me have more precision. Go ahead and work in to the outside lines here. Then we're going to hold this brush more over to the side. And then light feathering strokes, and then again, just hold it more out to the side here. Yippee! All right, that is awesome. Oh, I just painted my mic. Okay, I guess it's gonna live. All right, now we're going to do this little section right here in black. You can let it set up and dry, do it with your Sharpie. If you want to do that, it's easier that way. Or we're going to go ahead and take just our little bit brush, this tiniest brush that we have. We'll go ahead and dip that into a little bit of black, do a little bit of a twist here, and then just paint right into that top little section there. And then I'm going to give this some time to go ahead and dry. And then we have some beautiful little bits of reflective light to really work into this too. So I've got my my little sunset happening here. So I'm going to go ahead and let's get a little bit of, let's reinforce some of that wet paint that comes around this white here. So I just want to make sure that we get a nice soft blend with what we're about to do. So that's still wet there on that side. This side looked like it was setting up and drying a little bit. So we've got a little bit more of that wet white around the edge. And then now we're going to add just a little tiny touch of water and then back to our primary magenta. And then I'm going to go ahead and circle around that little sunset. Just kind of spin it. And then just kind of lightly come around it. We're going to come in with a little bit of orange. Little tiny circles. And then continue on with a little bit more orange in a circular pattern. Little sketches of that. And then let's see if I've got, I'm going to grab a little bit of some primary yellow. So I want this to be a little bit more dramatic. All right, so just a little tiny touch of that, working this in with my little bit brush here. And just tiny little circular sketches kind of echo that circular pattern up into the sky. Let's go back into a little more orange. All right, now we can start to pull that reflective light down into the water here. So I need to grab a little bit more of everything that I've got. So we want our orange. I've used it up completely. So we have our orange, and then we have our primary magenta. All right, see, now we're fully loaded with beautiful, bright, vibrant color. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make just tiny little dashes, because this is going to start to reflect on the water, and then it's going to pull all the way down to just a little tiny point down here. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit, but I'm going to start with the orange, and then I'm going to add just a little tiny touch of that primary magenta in there too. And then now let's touch into a little bit of that primary yellow. And again, it's just little tiny sketches. This is a really easy stroke. And so that's our little sunset working its way down into the water, creating that reflection there. And then the other thing that we'll do is we're going to continue on and do more of that same type of stroke that happens in the water. So lots of little strokes here, but now we're going to come in with those other colors that we used to mix. So we have a lot of our white, and then I want to make sure I've got plenty of that viridian as well. All right, so here we go. We have our little bit brush, and let's mix up some of that. And then we're going to make lots of fun little dashes over the water. And you want to, kind of be playful with this and mix it up as you go. So you can see how I kind of pushed into a little bit of that primary cyan blue, and then we'll go into a little bit of that viridian and a little bit of white. And it's just like making little soft dashes all over the surface of the water. So, and you can have a bigger dash of this if you want. Like if you want a bigger brush, let's say another option would be to use your little buddy brush here. So let's go ahead and get a little look at that too, so you can make some bigger waves. So I'll go ahead and put my little bit. We have a bigger surface area to work into now, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to little buddy. I can make lots of little lines. Just take this right over the top. And when you add a little bit more white in there too, like I did there, it's really fun. It looks like just like a little bit of a wave coming up. Just a little water cap that comes up. So this is great therapy. It really helps. All these little dashes helps you work out some little bits of tension. And then remember, just keep that variety happening. So don't forget about your other colors. So you can kind of keep working into this with little bits of your viridian and your white and your cyan blue. Just adding lots of fun texture over the surface of that water. And this is so simple. And again, this is definitely designed for a beginner. Now up towards the top, I do try to keep it a little bit darker. So I'm going to do little bits more of the dashes of the primary cyan blue, and then I'll lighten it up as I get farther away. Be a little bit more heavy-handed with that cyan blue. Come up with that turquoise now. Now I'm going to start grabbing more of that turquoise. And I think what you'll find is it kind of reminds me of a little bit of a Van Gogh Starry Night. It's similar, I guess, to that. Just lots of fun repetitions. This is just, again, a very simple, easy stroke here. And again, just remember to keep dipping into different areas of paint here. So I went into a little bit more white this time, and then some turquoise, and some primary cyan blue, and then some of that viridian. So that definitely keeps it fun and different. Gives some nice texture out here. If anything feels a bit too abrupt too in your surface area, just remember that you can always come back in and just create more layers of more of those dashes, and it will create a really nice subtle blend just by means of texture. Just more layers right over the top. So this is just a simple side stroke. Pretty, pretty. See, we're almost done with this too. Just fast. Or you can take your time with it. I'm working a little bit faster than I think most people would. Definitely just try to take your time and enjoy the process. So this is some beautiful texture in our water. You can see how I'm coming a little bit off the canvas too, and then onto the canvas. And that way you've got half a stroke starting in the middle, and I think that's a nice way to softly blend onto so it doesn't look like it's interrupted before it hits the end here. All right. So that is looking quite lovely. All right, so now we have some decorative treatment we can do over the top of our little boat here. We need to come back in with our little bit brush. Here is one. Come on. All right, nice and clean. And then we're going to go ahead and work into a little bit of the black. You can add a little tiny touch of water to this too. Remember to twist into the paint. I twist it between my fingertips so that loads it up, but it also twists it into a nice fine point, makes it easier to work with for a really precise, tiny little line. And then I'm going to go ahead and have this line coming from here. I want to reinforce that. Get that line back in there. And then we'll work back in our little swirls. I'm going to reinforce these little lines here. Now those lines, especially the long ones, actually I'm going to use this guy for a little bit, the little swirls. Now I'm going to come back in. Now that I think about this, I'm going to come back in with a longer line for the long line edge. So I'm going to come back in with Mama. So let's go ahead and do some firm pressure. Nice thin line on the edge. There it is. And this is going to be a lot easier to do with a long line edge of a brush like this. Because if you try to do that with this little guy, your hand usually shakes and you get lots of wiggles. And so it's really hard to get a nice straight line with a really small brush like that. So much easier to do with the Mama brush. So let that long line edge of the brush work for you. It stays on track. Much easier. All right, so we're good. We've got nice reinforced lines now. And then I did such an amazing job of covering up all my white that I lost my little curlicues. That's okay. So basically what we want to do now, so let me show you on a plate. If you're practicing making curlicues, think of it like you're making the number 6. So it feels just like that, but you kind of curl inside. So that's the easiest way to go about doing that. So you can get some good practice and then make sure this is a nice thin line, and then you can make little tiny swirls. And then of course you can also do this with your permanent marker too. Just again, make sure that your paint is completely dry. So I like to come from different angles. And mix it up a little bit. All right, so we have our cute little swirls in place, and you can leave it just like that, very simple, or you can add some little dots to it as well. And this is very easy. So you take the end of the brush, and let's go ahead and dip into some black. And let's go ahead and just push straight forward, and we'll just push in some little dots. And you can just create all kinds of fun little polka dots. I mean, you could do like a line edge of polka dots up around the boat. I mean, you could just go crazy with this. It's so much fun. Because these are all going to just push down in the same exact size every single time. So again, it just makes it really easy for you. And wow, I think I might be done here. I may want to you can brighten up your little sun here just a little bit more. I'm going to add a little touch of brightness. Because that was looking a little bit muted. Let's kind of spin this in around. Now let's go back into the yellow. Spin that round. It gives a nice soft fade. Just kind of spin it round and round. Little tiny dashes out there. Working back in that orange now. Make that a little bit more subtle. And then get that nice soft blend between the brights and the surrounding sky. And I'm going to touch in just a little bit more of that reflective light. And a little bit more happening there. It's a bit brighter right over the top. And voila! I think we are done with Go Jump in a Lake. Yes, this feels lovely right now, doesn't it? So if you have snow outside, as we do, then you can just imagine with me that we're out at the lake right now, and it's bright and sunny and beautiful, and we're going to go jump in a lake, and it's going to be 70 degrees or 80 degrees or 90 degrees. It's going to be awesome. It'll be here soon. So, all right. So here we go. Go jump in a lake. This is on our website, tipsyartist.com. We have the whole painting kit, all the supplies, everything that you need, and the line art. So it makes it super fun and easy. But thank you so very much for joining me. We love y'all. We always have a great time with y'all, and we will see you soon.